is a monster. It devours hope, shatters dreams, and leaves behind a trail of devastation. Nowhere is this truth more evident than in the seemingly intractable conflict between Iran and Israel. For decades, this bitter feud has cast a long shadow over the Middle East, fueling instability, fear, and immense human suffering. This is not a story about politics or ideology, it's about people. It's about the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire, their lives torn apart by a conflict they did not choose. It's about the mothers weeping over the loss of their children, the families displaced from their homes, and the futures extinguished by bombs and bullets. We must never forget the human cost of this conflict. We must never become numb to the suffering, the pain, and the loss of life. It is our duty to bear witness, to speak out against the horrors of war, and to demand a better future for all. The roots of the Iran-Israel conflict run deep, entangled in a complex web of historical grievances, religious differences, and geopolitical rivalries. To understand the present, we must delve into the past. The Zionist movement, which emerged in the late 19th century, sought to establish a Jewish state in Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire. This sparked tensions with the Arab population, leading to sporadic violence. After World War II, the United Nations voted to partition Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab, a decision rejected by Arab leaders. The subsequent Arab-Israeli War of 1948 resulted in the creation of Israel and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Iran, then ruled by the Shah, initially recognized Israel. However, the 1979 Islamic Revolution transformed Iran into a theocracy vehemently opposed to Israel's existence. This ideological clash, coupled with geopolitical ambitions and proxy conflicts, has fueled decades of mistrust, hostility, and violence. From Hezbollah's rise in Lebanon to the ongoing conflict in Syria, the rivalry between Iran and Israel has had a destabilizing effect on the entire region.
The human cost of the Iran-Israel proxy war conflict is immeasurable. Countless lives have been lost, families torn apart, and communities shattered.
The physical scars of war are visible: bombed-out buildings, shattered infrastructure, and a landscape scarred by conflict. But it is the invisible scars, the psychological trauma inflicted on generations, that run deepest.
Civilians on both sides live in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. The threat of rocket attacks, suicide bombings, and military incursions hangs heavy in the air. Children grow up hearing the sounds of war, their childhood stolen by a conflict they did not create. The psychological toll is immense. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues are widespread. The constant stress and fear take a heavy toll on individuals, families, and communities.
We must remember that behind the statistics, behind the headlines, are real people with real lives, hopes, and dreams. Each casualty is not just a number, it is a human tragedy, a life cut short, a future denied. Children are the most vulnerable victims of war. They are often caught in the crossfire, their innocence shattered by violence and loss. In the Iran-Israel proxy conflict, children on both sides have borne the brunt of the suffering. Thousands of children have been killed or injured in the conflict. Many more have been orphaned, displaced, or separated from their families. They have witnessed unspeakable horrors, their childhoods marked by fear, violence, and loss.
The psychological impact of war on children can be devastating. They may suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. They may struggle to learn, form relationships, and cope with everyday life.
The international community has a moral obligation to protect children in conflict zones and to provide them with the support they need to heal and rebuild their lives. We must work towards a future where no child has to experience the horrors of war. A world on edge: global implications. The Iran-Israel conflict is not just a regional issue. It has far-reaching global implications. The rivalry between these two powerful nations has fueled instability in the Middle East, with ripple effects felt around the world. The conflict has exacerbated sectarian tensions in the region, particularly between Sunni and Shia Muslims. It has also provided fertile ground for extremist groups like ISIS to flourish. The instability created by the conflict has led to mass displacement, humanitarian crises, and a surge in refugees seeking safety and a better life. The global community cannot afford to ignore this conflict. The stakes are too high. We must work together to find a peaceful resolution, not just for the sake of Israelis and Iranians, but for the sake of global security and stability. Voices of reason, international condemnation and peace efforts. Amid the darkness, there are glimmers of hope. The international community has repeatedly condemned the violence and called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Numerous peace initiatives and diplomatic efforts have been undertaken over the years, seeking to bridge the divide and find common ground. The United Nations has played a leading role in mediating between the parties, urging dialogue and restraint. Several countries, including European Union members and Russia, have also engaged in diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions and promote dialogue. While these efforts have yet to yield a lasting solution, they demonstrate a shared commitment to peace and a recognition that dialogue, however difficult, is the only path forward.
The international community must continue to exert pressure on both sides to choose the path of peace over the path of conflict. We must support dialogue, diplomacy, and reconciliation efforts, however challenging they may seem.
The path forward, diplomacy and dialogue.
The only way to break the cycle of violence and mistrust is through sustained diplomacy and dialogue. Both sides must come to the negotiating table with a genuine willingness to listen, to understand the other's perspective, and to find common ground.
This will require compromise and a willingness to move beyond past grievances. It will demand courage, leadership, and a shared vision for a future where both Israelis and Iranians can live in peace and security.
Dialogue will not be easy. There will be setbacks, obstacles, and moments when hope feels elusive, but we must persevere, knowing that the alternative, continued conflict and suffering, is simply unacceptable. Seeds of hope, fostering understanding and empathy.
Peace is not merely the absence of war, it is the presence of justice, understanding, and reconciliation. To build a lasting peace between Israelis and Iranians, we must sow the seeds of empathy and understanding. We must challenge stereotypes, break down prejudices, and foster a spirit of coexistence.
This requires promoting people-to-people exchanges, encouraging dialogue between religious leaders, and supporting initiatives that build bridges between communities. Education plays a vital role in shaping hearts and minds. By teaching our children about the history, culture, and perspectives of the other, we can help break down barriers and promote tolerance and respect.
When we see each other not as enemies but as fellow human beings, we open the door to empathy, compassion, and ultimately, to peace.
A call to action. Stand up for peace.
Peace is not a spectator sport. It requires active participation from all of us. We cannot remain silent in the face of injustice, hatred, and violence. We must raise our voices and demand a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Support organizations working to promote peace, understanding, and reconciliation between Israelis and Iranians. Educate yourself and others about the conflict, challenge prejudices, and promote dialogue and understanding.
Contact your elected officials and urge them to prioritize diplomacy and peace-building efforts. Encourage them to support initiatives that foster dialogue, understanding, and coexistence between Israelis and Iranians.
Every voice raised for peace, every act of kindness, every bridge built between communities brings us one step closer to a brighter future. Epilogue. A future free from fear. Imagine a future where Israeli and Iranian children can play together without fear. Imagine a future where families on both sides no longer have to live under the shadow of war. Imagine a future where cooperation and coexistence replace conflict and mistrust. This is the future we must strive for. This is the future our children deserve. Let us work together with courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to make this vision a reality. The path to peace may be long and arduous, but it is a journey we must take together. For in the words of the great Nelson Mandela, peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the creation of an environment where all people feel safe and secure, and where they can flourish and reach their full potential.